is I was gonna start this in the unorthodox way, right? So I can just hit this with, and I feel if anybody see this posted and I say Dodson, they might be thinking one particular Dodson.
Yeah. They might
That's
be
if
the
that's
taller
if
one, the buffalo.
Yeah, the buffalo. That's if you are like Barbadian and you're Bayesian and you're familiar with the name Dodson. Then when you
Correct.
see this, it's not that Dodson, but it's another Dodson. So my friend Kyle, glad to have you.
Good evening.
Yeah. Usually before we get into everything, I just ask the guests to like give a little introduction or, just say something about yourself. One of the reasons for bringing you on to the chat was because, and we were talking before, like, you could be silly sometimes, you could be like crazy sometimes, but then a lot of times we had conversation that, I don't know about you, but it just was like left me feel like more edified or like just thinking about something in a different way or in a different light. And I know we got a slight age gap in terms of me being older, but for me it was just like, I don't want to make it seem as if I like super old, but it definitely feels like some of the words that you were using or some of the ways that you were articulating it just feel like you're a little bit beyond your years. I'm more mature than other like late 20-year-olds I would have like spoken to a while. So
Appreciate that.
it just feels like and recently becoming a dad, but you didn't get to introduce yourself. It just feels like a conversation that I want to have with another brother, another father. So that's the reason for being here today, and I thank you for taking the call. But the floor is yours. You can introduce yourself and let the people know who you are, what you do, what was your journey like, especially your fatherhood.
Okay, well, I am Kyle Dodson, and I am horrible at introducing myself, funny enough. People know me as a bit of a social butterfly, pretty extroverted, but
Right.
at the end of many interactions with people, what's your name?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I am Kyle Dodson. Definitely extroverted. I will have a conversation with anybody.
Yeah.
And I can see my wife's face right now. Yes, Kyle, you would talk to Hitler and you would get him to like Jews and black people. Yes, that is me. That is definitely. If somebody is gonna get it done, it is going to be me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am very social. I like people. Definitely a family guy from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, almost all of my extended family married, had kids, stayed together. Even the ones that weren't married had kids, stayed together.
Yeah.
So I saw that a lot around me. Close family, friends, similar situation, and I always wanted to do the same thing. I knew from about age 7 that I wanted to be a father.
Yeah.
And nothing has changed yet. I have gotten maybe a little more realistic, but nothing fundamentally has changed. I'm a man of the iron, although I'm on a bit of a 3-month hiatus now. I know you haven't seen me in the gym for a while.
Bruh, I'm on a 4-month hiatus. Let's keep it pushing. We're not even touching that.
Correct. The last time I had a break like this was back during UE days when the gym would be shut for like half of a semester and stuff, Yeah, but it might be well deserved, So by day, IT, web development, primarily, that kind of stuff. A little bit of graphic design in there from time to time. Some evenings I work at a restaurant. I love both of those jobs because one, the restaurant work, I get to be with people. I get to network, I meet a lot of people. I'm on my feet. I'm up and down, During the day, I work from home, which is really nice, especially for that family we're going to talk about. And I am very blessed. I consider myself very, very fortunate, more fortunate than most, where that's concerned. Is a pretty nice lifestyle. And when I was younger, something I always used to think about was in our parents' time, in our grandparents' time, the father had to essentially sacrifice time with his family to provide for his family, And now we're living in a world where that is not necessarily the case.
So stick up in on that. So because that's something I want to bring up a little later. You mentioned like all the extended families and stuff being, I guess, in long-term relationships and stuff.
Correct.
Like well, obviously we see that your identity towards relationships and long-term is rooted in that. I think one of the questions I ask most of the guys that come on in some way or some form it's like, how is the relationship with your dad? And like, how did that play to that? Because I've had examples of families and stuff being together outside of my mom and my dad, right? But subsequently, my mom and my dad split. And my relationship, two relationships, or my relationship with dating and stuff like that, has been very skewed. It's not something that I learned from my dad for sure. In terms of like being close knit and being close with a partner. I definitely think that the path that I had or that I led in life was one of like, I guess, promiscuity and stuff, and it led on for most males. But what was it like at home, like seeing a father figure? What was your dad like? How was he? I guess, what was the prominence in your life and stuff like that when it comes to how you are now?
The most prominent thing about my father was that he led by example. So, I hesitate to say this, right? But my father is not the most emotionally available man, but he is the best example of how to be that and still.
Is he still with your mom?
Yeah. Still together. He's definitely a good example of being emotionally unavailable, but very effective still. You know, nobody's perfect, you know, but he led by example. He's a man of very consistent character.
How would he lead by example? Like, what would he do? What was his characteristics?
Home every night. You know, sometimes he would work late. My dad, he did networking, databases, that kind of stuff. So, I went down the web development path. That was probably the one aspect of computer science he did not really touch. Right. But pretty much almost everything else he did, and more on the hardware side of things too. So he would be running around with the clients during the day. So there would be times, for example, he might pick me up from school at a certain time, run to a client, you know, with me, depending on how long he's going to take, either in the car or in the office with him. And he would do his work and then go and pick up my mom and come home. That was a typical evening.
What was that feeling like to be like with your dad?
To be honest, looking back, it means much more because before it was just like, I want to get home and not feel like doing my homework. I want to get home and, you know, but it is a lot of passive. That's the kind of the words that come to me when I think about my father, passive by example. It wasn't big and showy, you know, but then when you look back, it's like everything was there though. Everything was there, you know.
Very purposeful.
Yeah, correct. So I mentioned consistent character. I didn't see a lot of hypocrisy in my father. You know, he was a man of his word. He was not one to complain too much, you know. Cheese done bread, this thing, da-da-da. And that's the first and last time you're going to hear about it, you know. And boy, I'm still trying to emulate that to this day, you know. He rock solid where that's concerned, man. Rock solid.
So you know, becoming a dad. Yeah. Congrats.
Thank you very much. Congrats again, by the way.
Happy belated Father's Day.
Yes, please.
All right.
Yes, please.
Before we started rolling, I had mentioned to you how there was like there is not really a space, especially for me right now, where I have a lot of young, close friends that are fathers, you know?
Yeah.
Most of the fathers that would have been in my life would have been 30, 40, you know, plus. And coming up, these guys get older, obviously. So now a lot of the friends, so to speak, or a lot of the father figures are like older guys, you know, in the 40, pushing 50, maybe late 30s. And kids a lot older than obviously that we know. So there wasn't really a space to be like, all right, this is what you do next, right? And we're gonna get into some of that stuff that we mentioned before. I guess we really want to get that. For me, I wasn't really sure what to expect when I became a dad, and I wasn't sure like who to lean on around me because everybody seemed like they did it already and they just got past it and whatever.
Yeah.
So looking around, I mean, I got a few, right? But
Of course.
again,
There's always a few.
nobody that I was like super, super close with, but I was always checking in with everybody. But it was never anybody that you actually sat down with that actually went through the same thing as you literally months ago. You know what I mean? Not years, and like my son is 14.
Right there.
And in secondary school, and he about to go, like, you right there in the process and right there in the journey. You never really got to sit down with somebody and be like, so what was your mindset like when you found out? You know? So for me, I know how that was, but I want to hear from somebody else, you know, like,
For sure.
what was that like for you?
Our cat is who?
Not the cat.
Our cat went on my wife's stomach and started to do certain things, and it made her suspicious. That's basically how we found out.
That's how you found out?
Yeah. So she went and, she took a test, and she was like, oh shoot, listen. And we always say Micah was definitely planned, but his timing wasn't. That's the interesting thing. Even when you're ready, when it happens, be like, wait, hold on.
You know what's funny? Xavi was not planned. You know what I mean? And this is not to like knock. He is great.
Of course,
I love Xavi. But I remember we had the conversation, Jess and I, because as much as people see us now, the relationship is still pretty new, right? So we go through stuff and like, these things we gotta get in place, and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that, and we can start thinking about baby next year. Cool. Remember, we're planning for all these crop over events and and literally having a conversation. We can have baby next year. Next year being 2025. We can plan for baby and everything 2025. And we were talking about traveling. And later in the year, we we're going to Ecuador, and for some reason, when girls get together, like periods and stuff for sync up. I remember my girl telling a friend of mine, period didn't come yet. Probably just late. Their birthdays are only the same time. They ain't say gym training and da. So like, ain't taking them back. And this one on Wednesday, I will never forget it was a Wednesday. I was dropping off her older son to school, but I had to go and get my hair cut. It was just like a busy Wednesday, and my mom was over, she was helping out and stuff. It's just like all these things that we need to do. And I get this message. Well, I didn't get a message from Jess, but as soon as I got home to pick up the little one, she was like, let him go with your mom, come in the room. But it was very like urgent, right? Like, come in the room. I was like,
yeah.
Okay, cool. Come in the room, door closed. I should just show this, just take away.
No introduction, no easy.
Nothing.
Just blam.
I was like, someone for planning for 2025.
Yeah, boy.
But
gone.
then, like, in terms of, like I was asking about myself, like immediately from that moment, bruh, from seeing the stick, every gear that was in my mind was just turning.
Yeah.
It was like, everything stopped from being, this is what life is, and this is what I got planned out. It's like, why am I doing that? So, it's just like a fanfare and stuff just going on. Like,
it just clears the canvas instantly.
Like everything.
You excited. Like it's
like nothing else mattered at that moment.
Yeah,
in time.
correct.
It's like,
correct.
I would have been that. You know what I mean? And I could only imagine what that would be like for like older parents and stuff in terms of people actually sticking around and like seeing out. Like, I really didn't know what to expect, like I said, but it's like, I just know that I want to be here. You know what I mean? I just know what I want to stick it through, because this thing, like, it just feel magical in a sense, but it's just something like.
But it is miraculous, man.
Yeah.
When you start to dig into the whole science, the biochemistry of it and stuff like that, it is crazy, because it's just one sperm, one egg, and this one make it, and something start to happen.
Dog, like, just to go through everything and being able to like share that with somebody, and it's very intricate, the things that you're talking about, or it seems like, obvious, and people that would have done biology and stuff like that. Duh. But it's like, just to think about it, because she spent 9 months or whatever carrying. But it's only till like after that you meet this person for all this time.
We spoke about this before. This whole thing, like, yes, we're happy, we're excited, but then we get to watch, you know, the mother of our child interact with something.
Yeah.
Feel these emotions in a very, very direct sense because the thing is happening to her.
Right.
And then you suddenly realize how, funny enough, divorced you are from the situation because it's like, okay, I saw the pregnancy test. I see the belly growing. But all of these are proxies. I can't feel the butterflies. I can't feel the kick. Even when I see the kick, even when I see the imprint, when we get to 6 months and that
you
kind of stuff,
really
like, it's not, that's still not it. You know, I can't attach.
Yeah.
I can't attach myself to this thing yet because it's not there in the world for me to touch. But it, like, I watched a Vsauce video, shout out to Vsauce, years ago, about how at the atomic level, at the particle level, you never actually touch anything. And what you actually feel is the resistance of the electrons, the particles inside your hand, and your nerves are sensors for that. It sense that resistance, basically. I hope I'm not butchering this, but people get it. The smart people get it. And the people who ain't so smart,
people that ain't so smart
will pretend to understand. Yeah. But so when you think about that, now, as you can see me right here, I'm putting my finger on my other finger, and it's like I feel like I'm touching myself, but not really.
Yeah.
When you zoom all the way in,
it's like particles.
What we think is contact is not actually happening.
Yeah.
So he went on to make the point in the video that the closest you will ever be to anybody is your mother, because you are literally a product of her cells, and you grew inside her, and you are her and it's not just DNA, but you have your mother's mitochondrial DNA, you know, so all of that, and then you go from that to breastfeeding and stuff. The closest you will ever be is to your mother. And I felt that when Michael was growing inside my wife. It's like I am not in this yet. I gotta wait till this baby is born to actually be able to feel comparably how she is feeling with this child inside her, and is strangely lonely.
Strangely lonely. I glad you touched on that because something came up in a podcast I was listening to recently with a doctor called Animation, right? I do a lot of I would listen to a lot of podcasts like There Is He or What's Not. So I was starting to pick up like certain things, especially ones that speak about fatherhood and men, especially men in modern society. I want to stick on that because I want to go twofold, right? First off, it's like, how did it change? How did that change for you physically, mentally, and emotionally? I already understand, like, you know, you get very sense and specific when it comes to that. But you can stick a pin in that before you get that. No, she mentioned how, like, the podcast was pretty good. And it was pretty much hitting at the fact that it's very like intrinsic and biological in nature for mothers to be nurturing towards the child. Obviously. Yeah. Carrying, the growing and everything, right? But then there's a nurture element that the father carries and stuff like that. But in society, before we even touch on that, in society, there's I don't want to use the word neglect, but right now there's another word coming right now, so just follow. It's almost like a neglect when it comes to the father and the role that the father plays when it comes to stuff like that. Again, back to the question soon. Her example was she was about to give birth to her daughter, right? While in the process, things went pretty bad. It's literally the last thing that a man would like to see. You spend your time watching your lady go through all this, all the pain, all the torture. You're about to meet your child for the first time, being able to touch and interact for the very first time, and then all of a sudden, like, things almost taken away from me in an instant. You know what I mean? And she likened it to like he was watching the car crash slowly before his eyes. Yeah. She got taken away because she was so ill. Something seriously went wrong with the daughter. It shifted her and the daughter to another room. And he's in the room waiting for her or waiting for something to be said about her and the daughter. A janitor comes in and he's like, did she die? And he's like, well, if something happened, they're gonna come and tell you. All this time, he needs now to process all these things as a man and to be like, I really don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And he needs to feel all that for her because she fainted during the whole process. What we want to get at is this. A lot of people tend to simplify, nullify, and dehumanize the feelings that we as men may feel when it comes to what's going on with the woman in your life or what's going on with the children in your life, because they don't see us as having that nurturing aspect when it comes to children. And I feel like that's so far from the truth. When Zavi was born, for example, like, I stayed up for the entire thing. I mean, like, no sleep.
Of course.
I could just remember, like, being on the cot after everything. His blood sugar was starting to drop. And it was just waiting to see what's going to happen. And they're like, oh, you can sleep. I'm like, I really don't know what you're doing right now. It's the first time meeting this little man. You know what I mean? You guys pricking his leg every 2 minutes, just get blood. I need to understand what's going on.
People don't understand how powerless a man feels in that delivery room.
Mm-hmm.
Because everywhere else in life I could do something.
Everywhere else.
I could throw money at it. This is just easiest example of hanging fruit. I could throw my strength at it.
Yeah.
I could lift the weight. I could push the car. I could, whatever it is, I could do it. I could be the rock that her waves crashing against, all that kind of stuff. But in that room, you can't do nothing.
No,
you can't do nothing for her. You can't do nothing for the child. You have to sit and wait and simmer in the helplessness. You can't lift. If something going wrong, you can't lift it. You can't give money to it. There's nothing you could do. You have to just wait.
As a man, right? Like, as a man, knowing that these are things that men battle with daily, right? Like, feeling helpless in our moment, like, what's that like for you? Because I remember for me, like, they wanted me to be at the side and just wanted to squeeze my hand and, all this stuff. Is just like, at one point, I almost said, like, I really don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. But I had to stick to it, right? I had to be strong.
Correct.
So it's like, knowing that you could be so strong in all these other aspects, and in that moment, you feel like there's really nothing you could do. Like, I don't bug you. I don't know.
Of course. My wife's mother was in the room too. And I really hope I'm not outing her, but at one point, I heard some sniffles, and I looked to my left, and I saw some tears, and I had to hold her, and nothing seriously wrong happened, or at least not for too long. I did, because I remember I was there, was watching everything. At one point, I literally went to the front, and the umbilical cord was around his neck twice, and they said we got the thing, and they had to actually snip it at one point. Michael was fine though. Michael was fine. Actually, when he came out, they had to literally make him cry because he came out like a Calvin Klein model, like just like y'all can relax.
Zavi was just like in the room, like, for likes.
Yeah,
people.
They slap him up. He was like, it was like, stop it, like, just leave me alone. I am alive. But it's just those moments, and I know I told myself in there, like, they're kind of counting on you. Somebody gotta be a rock, because even when the doctor's voice is rising and stuff like that, somebody gotta do it. People always say, "Oh, it's okay to this, it's okay to that." It's okay to break down at the right time, And men instinctively know that. There's this conversation going on, out there in the world, that it's okay for men to let go. It's okay for men to share their emotions, to be vulnerable, but it's about the right place and the right time, because you need a safe space to be vulnerable. That's man, woman, anybody, And people seem to think that a man who is in touch with his emotions has to emote like a woman, because somewhere along the way we got this impression that to emote healthily is to emote like a woman, as opposed to the understanding that men process emotions differently.
Yes. And
there is a healthy way for men to process their emotions, and it does not have to take the form of a woman.
So the same doctor, I mentioned, I hope I'm not butchering her name or anything. Her study is anthropology, right? And more so anthropology in evolution, in terms of like how humans evolve and
Correct.
And more specifically, it started to become more about fathers because of what she saw, what happened to her and her husband, right? One of the things that she pointed out in the same podcast was the fact that fathers, and we talking about the whole nurturing aspect of things, but fathers are the ones that underpin like the social behavior when it comes to stuff. Children gonna scream and be very like emotionally unattached and detached, and and in previous podcasts we touched on it a lot. Well, I touched on it a lot, whereas I was trying to get out from the guests or necessarily speak about it, whereas we see a lot of emotionally unattached males running around in society, and seeing how your dad and all these other males and stuff in your life, it could only further strengthen the point that having a father around, or having somebody, regardless if he's like very passive or he's not very emotional, whatever, having a father around or having a father stick around so often, it does something to a child.
Yeah, it makes a difference for sure.
Then how you show up in society is very much linked to having a great father in your life.
Yes.
Right? And she even went as far as saying that the father doesn't necessarily even have to be biological. This could be a father figure that really stands in place of the father and shows or models what a man should be and how a man should move in society.
Correct.
And that also involves taking and being in control of emotions, right? In a social world and in this society, whereas everything just seems to be like
all the time, 24/7. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
All over the place.
As much as in the podcast and in this entirety of the podcast, the theme for this has been vulnerability for me and being able to be open in this space. There still needs to be a time whereas not everything calls for an emotional response.
Correct.
And being able and knowing how to navigate emotions and knowing how to regulate emotions is a very important skill to learn. And you don't really learn that through mothers. People can attack all they want, but statistics show that when there's not a father or a father figure permanent, it's more likely that there's violence, there's more likely that there's self-harm, there's more likely that they don't know how to show up in society or how to have these skills to be even extroverted like yourself, because you're not you're not easygoing, you don't know how to socialize and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's all something that fathers nurture. That was her point, really. Correct. And it seems like it's true, right? Like you see it in society all the time. Anyways, moving on. So far, what do you think is the hardest thing in being a dad?
You know how you said earlier, funny enough, the emotional reaction. I actually wanted to make an adjustment to that. Emotional response, and I want to make the adjustment. There's emotional reaction and there's emotional response, which brings me into how I want to answer the question. The hardest thing is responding versus reacting. Reacting is less filtered or not filtered at all.
Right.
Is a one-to-one projection of the emotion. That's what reaction is. And to me, becoming a man, becoming an adult, is learning how to go from reacting to responding. I think the maturation process is literally learning how to respond versus react. Because the responsible, that's where you want to begin to lean towards. Because when you respond, some time has been taken to curate,
right,
and to tailor what you express.
Yeah.
And I think that is really, really difficult, because there are times that I say I might need to put my foot down right now about this. Might not even quite be with the child, might be with my wife, etc. Because as a man, you want to protect.
Yeah.
You want to create a hedge around your family. You want them to be as free.
It's very intrinsic.
Correct.
Yeah.
It happens naturally.
Yeah.
The second Micah was born, as he come out, the first thing I did was ask why his head looked like that. Literally. And the doctors laugh because of how immediate that was. As soon as I see something that didn't look, I asking questions like, what's going on here? What's going on here?
Same reason for why you want to be up all night, right?
Correct.
Like, I would never forget the day that she went to deliver. I literally had a client after being up the day before, but then my last client was at 5. But then she walking around, the contraction starting to get quick. So it was like, what happening? So what you want to do? We going? Pack all this stuff and we going.
Correct. Instantaneous. The energy comes.
Get to the hospital.
What's going on? You are
o'clock.
at full capacity.
Zavi did not come until we get to the hospital at 7 o'clock. Zavi did not come until what? Minutes to 1 or something the next day. Well, we still up and all these things happen.
Yeah.
Wait, this thing happening.
Correct.
What's going on now?
Yeah.
And after that, we hearing that blood sugar. So it's like, what are you supposed to do now? But stay up.
Yeah.
Why am I supposed to know but stay up and stay by her side? Because it's like, anything can pop off right now and she's not strong enough to do anything. So like, what we're doing, it's so instinctive. As you say, it's so intrinsic in a man to just be provided. And I think we can touch on it a little later, but in society, all this gender role and all these debates about what a man should be and stuff, it's like, if we just go down to the biological nature of each person, man and woman, you just realize that the things that you crave for in a man or in a woman are literally things that make us man or woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Women crave...
inform the roles that we play when we become men and women. Yeah.
Stick up in. I know you talk about being reactive or being responsive and even knowing when I went to shift gears or whatever.
Correct.
You ever feel like in doing that, you feel like you're feeling or you're falling short?
There have been times, but you can always look to rectify, mitigate, compensate, do something differently.
How?
Admit, hey, we did this and I did this way.
Admit to your wife or you just...
Yeah. You got to be forthcoming with it. You know, I feel I want to do things differently. We might have gotten through, and you know, but I'm not here with you to be 60%, to half-ass. I'm here to give you 100%. I married you. I put the ring on your finger, and I wear my ring. I can talk about this, you know, and I wear my ring because that is my demonstration, 100%. So when I what
happens when you don't feel 100% though?
Go in a car and sulk a little bit and try to figure out what you could do better, you know. But yeah, like you pivot, you know. You look back. I deal with databases every day. I deal with data every day, you know, that kind of stuff. And sometimes I take that and I try to apply it to my life. I try to be an AI, you know. Although I am very dismissive about AI, but you know. But I try to look back. I'm always looking at the data. I'm always going back in what happened in my day, in my interactions with my son, in my interactions with my wife. What would have happened if I did this? I look at the permutations. If I did that, what will happen? If I did that, what will happen? If I did that, what will happen?
Everything in real life isn't logistics, though, is it?
Of course. You could definitely take that too far. You and I both are overanalyzers. But sometimes there's fun in just doing it.
Yeah.
There's fun just so I know. So I know that's a possibility.
Just so I know that if I, you know, maybe if I had just shift that a little closer to the rail.
Correct.
This
it's like dials, you know. You at the stove, and if I turn this dial up a little bit, I get this effect, you know. Fitness, real quick. I tell people this is what it comes down to. This is what health and fitness has come down to. I learned in school, health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being.
Right.
And those are the dials. You want to think about consistent training. You want to think about adequate nutrition.
Right.
You want to think about stress management, and you want to think about sleep. And those are the 4 dials. And how you manipulate those dials is how you create you have a biological homeostasis, you have a lifestyle homeostasis. So manipulating those dials is what gives you a certain lifestyle homeostasis. My brother is really good at getting people to lose a lot of weight real fast, healthily, all that kind of stuff. But you can't be 250 pounds. And this is, what's today's date? This is the 24th of July, crop over just now. You're not going to lose a whole bunch of weight in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, that kind of thing. If you want change, real fundamental change that is going to last, you need to live and breathe it. You need to make it your lifestyle, you know?
Is it something that fathers or the men in your life taught you, or you just see this is how they've been, so then this is how I adapt? Because we're in life. How old are you?
Turn 30 May.
We're in life. There's a 28, 29-year-old, 30-year-old. Just understand all that. Not just in these systems, right? They talk about systems before, this way, but to bring it so full circle to a relationship and fatherhood and stuff. Where do you learn that? You know,
you need examples, and I'm glad that I'm going to get to say this now. I have people around me that are amazing people. You know, I don't care where they are socioeconomically, where this is concerned. They are amazing people. They took the time to invest in me. You know, I'm a philosopher. You know, I like to have these discussions. I like to have these debates.
Yeah.
Anybody that went UE with me on the deck between 2013 to 2017 know what I'm talking about.
Right.
You know, I used to got people coming out lecture rooms like, y'all could keep it down. Like, I was always ready for the discussion, for the debate and stuff like that. And it basically fostered a situation where people know if we want to get to the bottom of something, Kyle need to be there because he can go this way, he can go that way. And I had a couple mentors in my life for sure that have been around me, that have always been there to help me make sense of the world, you know? My mother was a person, so we talk about my father, but I can't really talk about how I become the person I became without my mother, because my father walked in the world and showed me how to walk in the world by doing that, and my mother explained everything else, basically. She used to sit down, she used to talk to me, you know? When I was getting bullied in primary school, she used to talk to me. She taught me to have empathy for the people that were bullying me.
You're right.
And boy, that took me so far in life.
Yeah.
So far in life. It stopped me from being so much meaner to people, you know, than it otherwise could have been. And the thing is, these is just kids. Yeah. They gonna grow up. And we gonna all forget about that. And we gonna all laugh about that, you know? So it's like, you need people. Your network is your net worth. I heard Kevin Samuel say that. That might be a bit of a charged thing, but your network is your net worth, you know? Your quality of life is heavily based on the quality of your relationships. So people were definitely there to show me certain things. I have had certain experiences, you know, that reveal certain things to me. Yeah. You know? I spend a lot of time on the internet, and sometimes it's just watching stupid cat videos, but it's learning about biology, learning about religion, learning about history, learning about a lot of different things, you know? Having that whole database in your head of other people's experiences that you could pull from and say, maybe this is what you need to do in this situation. Yeah. You need good people around you. Yes. You need people that can see around your blind spots. I have a friend. If he listens to this podcast, he knows who it is. He knows that it's him I'm talking about. I go to him for him to see around my blind spots.
When the link comes, you just shoot it over.
For sure.
But yeah, like it's so important, because obviously before the conversation started and before the mics turned on and everything, one of the articles that I read touched on the same very topics, right? Because where we've gotten in society, it's just our point where, as I was saying, the article touched on, is like, it almost seems girly or gay for men to get together and just do something that does not require the use of alcohol. It doesn't require partying. It doesn't require making a mockery of yourself for our society. We can just come together and just be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But you think that's I feel that's something to project onto when they see a group of men, or even, you know what, is more particular for two men. Is more particular for two men. Maybe in a group, fine, but two men in particular doing something.
It's definitely particular for two men. But here's where it starts to get, I'm not like particular, but the topic starts to become a little bit more nuanced. Between 15 and 35, as your article pointed out, like those are the ages where you start to like just branch off in life and in society.
Correct.
18
Job,
and onwards,
family,
people travel, jobs, you live abroad, you get children, you know, and after a while, the circle of the group of guys starts to get smaller and smaller. And then if you are in a long-term relationship, you start to rely on the woman to start being the social butterfly. I know you're actually
yes,
right?
You know, it happens to me.
You start relying on her now to, you know, she meets this person that has a kid, and that person goes to school with her kid, and all of a sudden I'm friends with the male because she's friends with
correct.
And now I'm sitting with this guy like, I don't know what to say, but you know my girl and my girl knows your girl, so maybe that makes us friends. But then it's just like base level. Like, what do we talk about? There's no feeling or willingness to go any deeper than surface level because I don't really know you like that, right? I know it's effort that you need to put into trying to curate and build relationship.
Because it doesn't feel organic. It is like the second that I try to relate to you, it is going to become very obvious that I'm trying to relate to you because we are only friends because of our partners. Right. And it creates a little funniness. Not that you don't even like the person or something. That's not even we didn't even get there yet. I don't know you enough to even be able to, you know, but it's just, it creates a funny, like this feel contrived, and it shouldn't be contrived, but it feels contrived.
But it would be remiss to see that it's not an element of human nature that is required. You know, like you look at the hierarchy and needs and everything, and after food and after shelter, what's next? Is the sense of belonging,
right? That's sense to like, sense of belonging, and then the top is self-actualization. Right.
It's like you want no relationships and companionships.
Correct.
You need that to foster, as you said, you need these people around you to like create. It's almost like that same when it says like it takes a village. Like you need that around you to like create a better version of yourself. Because if you just stay there or whatever, you don't really get to the top of self-actualization because then you're just stuck in like the mud. You just stuck like just. When I see what's going on in society, it just breaks my heart. You know, like some of these guys, when I look at pictures, we see them circling and wow, like these guys went to school with me, or like was the same year as me, or in the neighborhood where you grew up, or in neighborhoods that you've been involved in. It's like this really shouldn't have happened if we had like more community. I mean, community that was actually constructive. I know guys can get together and they might play football or they might do whatever, but what about getting together and talking about, you know, stuff and
having real conversations.
Having
we used to do in school, because it used to happen in school, you know.
Yeah.
We were taught foolishness for a very long time, and then eventually the conversation just eventually gets deep. Yeah. You know? And that's rare. It's rare nowadays, man.
When it comes to, you mentioned like the provider and protector and stuff like that as intrinsic qualities and characteristics that you have. You think, well, Micah is like what? Because Abby's 4 months, so Micah's kind of almost a year now.
Yeah, definitely a year in terms of like height and that kind of stuff.
So like, you feel, there any pressures when it comes to like trying to be a provider or trying to be a protector and stuff that you cope with right now? Like,
yeah, it sounds like being a dead horse and the same record all the time, but I mean, it's always finances. It is always finances, you know? I don't worry about anything else like I worry about finances.
Why is it though? Because
you could do the work everywhere else,
but, you know? But why is it that us men, are so like fundamentally drawn to, I need to make sure that my finances are right in order to be protector or provider? You know what I mean?
You want to see your wife and your children comfortable. You know? You want them to never have to look at you like, we can get through. You don't want to see that look. That look that's happened is be like, are we okay?
That's why you work 2 jobs?
Well, yes, ultimately, but I was working 2 jobs before Imani even came into my life because I wanted to get ahead. Again, the people around me fostered that. Not even so directly. 1 or 2 fostered it kind of directly, but they got me out of my shell, and I was like, how it happened, right? I was at this job back in 2017, and they don't even know this, but I was struggling with really, really bad anxiety, like almost PTSD level type stuff, like just crazy, your heart racing, you're breaking out in cold sweats, your throat closing up, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And it just destroyed my performance at that job. And eventually they realized it and they let me go. So that, not on them at all, you know? And in that time, I hit the ground running very quickly. And I did some different things. I saw some graphic resources online and stuff. I went to these like sites that you would, people would like to buy icons for a website or print on demand sites, Redbubble, TeePublic, them kind of sites. So you would just design stuff on t-shirts on different products and sell them.
Yeah.
That's what I did. Eventually somebody asked me about doing social media. No, that was back when I hated social media more than I do now. Still hate it a little bit, but I will use it. So I rejected it at first, and the person was like, you understand you can make money, right? And I was like, switch. The switch was like, yes, you idiot, go and do it.
Yeah.
You know, because you could just take your same graphic designs and put them into social media, write some copy, you know?
Yeah.
Build a page. It's not really that, you know?
Yeah.
So I did that. I got a couple of clients, and then eventually things are going kind of good. I thought I was making a lot of money back then because I was living home and I wasn't feeling the weight of being an adult, you know? And then things started to dry up. And I remember a friend of mine's mother who owns a restaurant that I work in at. I think she had called me and asked me if I would be willing to come in to do some work and stuff. And I had said no at first because I was like, hey, what are you going to do in a restaurant, you know? I don't know. I would get back to you, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then I ended up calling back a couple months later and saying, well, you still got something available? She was like, yeah, you could come and be a waiter, be a server, that kind of stuff. And I was like, all right, I can try it, you know? I am a go-getter phase anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was nervous because the job was very social, got to interact with people. For some reason, I was real nervous about it. I didn't think I could handle it. You know, I went and there was a little bit of pressure. The restaurant felt busy to me. And it's like, this is not busy. You don't know busy.
Yeah.
You know? But turns out I ended up liking it because I got to interact with people and stuff, you know? Yeah. So that is how I ended up having the job at the restaurant. That was middle November 2019. 2020, the pandemic hit, you know? Near the end of March, we shut down. And that was that. So right before we shut down, I had gotten my two biggest clients that I ever did social media for, TVET and World Skills Barbados. And I also got the job that I had up until 3 months ago. Right? And that was a remote job as well. So I entered the pandemic with a bang. But I had to start working at the place, obviously, because of the shutdowns.
Yeah.
So then when it opened back up in 2021, I went back there because it was like, I should go back and, you know, multiply my money, stack my bread, multiple income streams, that kind of stuff, you know? Right. So that is basically why I just wanted to get ahead for that family that I was planning for anyway. Good thing I did, because goodness gracious me. You see what happened to gas in between there? You see what happened to popular discount in between there? You see, like, everything just went up.
Yeah.
You know? So now it went from, well, I was thriving and I was saving X amount of money a month and I was single too.
Yeah.
And somewhere in between there, a 7-year relationship blew up. You know? So, yeah. But, yeah, so it went from I was getting ahead with those two income streams to, if I did not have that, I don't know where I would be right now. You know? So, if there's any lesson to anybody, if you can work two jobs, if you happen to like the job you're at, and you think that you could take some evening work, some night work in, you know, the service industry, the food industry, that kind of stuff, and you know that you would be okay to do that at least for a couple of years, I say do it. And then take that extra income and try to save it, invest it, that kind of thing.
Would your advice be to do these things before getting into a relationship, before getting into a long-term relationship?
Yes, actually. Yes, because this is man, woman, you know. Invest in yourself, you know. Right after, like I said, had a long-term relationship that ended in between there too in 2021. Yeah, 2021. Something that I learned from that, right? I suddenly had to move out to a place and move into an apartment, and I would have been alone for the first time in my life. Right? Not living with anybody, right?
Yeah.
And something very strange happens when you become that isolated. and you don't take the depression path, basically. You know, you have no choice but to invest in yourself because you're the only person around you.
Funny enough, that was another question. It was going to be, if you ever have moments in life where you felt isolated, like you had to figure out everything.
That was that. I think 2021.
I think that's the point where, like, you start to catapult, you know, like into this new being, right? Because there's so many things that happen in the experiences I had too when it comes to losing jobs, losing relationships, not having enough. There was literally a point in life that I only had $2 of my name, literally. It was the last $2, and it was like the last year that bus fare was $2. So I literally had to take that, put that in the bus, and that was it. I had no money, right? And I sat and I watched I talked about her in maybe like the first podcast I did. A lady called Patty Dawabrowski. I always butcher the name, but she literally just sat down and said, like, draw your vision out, right? Life went differently for me. I worked in restaurants, I did all these different things. Social media came up, I got on stage, and then the rest is history. Breadfruit presents itself in front of you, right? But there was a period in time where you just had to be at home or had to be like in the trenches and like realize that this cannot be the end all be all. Correct. And I gotta climb my way out of this and become something.
Rock bottom is good for men.
To something, you know?
Rock bottom is so good for men.
Great for men. But at the same time, like, I still feel inundated with all these thoughts all the time. I put these systems in place to make sure that money is stacked away. I put these things in place to make sure that I never feel that I have to go back to having $2 to my name ever again. And then Zabi comes and like,
and it's like minus $2 now.
It's just like the wheels turn again. It's like, oh, I gotta do this all over again. So it's just put you in this place where, and I think I mentioned it before we started, like, partner and I, we have these conversations all the time. And it's hard to have the conversation with her because, and she can listen to this, she always listen to this. So it's hard to have the conversation because it's like, it's almost, I think I put it in my notes. It's like priorities. It's like shifting priorities. And everything I listen to, they say, I was reading a book called The Way the Superior Man. One part that he speaks about all the time is like, you gotta be a certain way in life. But one thing that you shouldn't forget is that you should give time to the partner.
Yeah.
I get so invested in doing all the things I do and all the things I want to do for them. It starts to muddy the water in the sense where you're doing it for them, but doing it for them is not the same as spending time with them.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
But it's very crazy waters to thread because it's like, I want to be a provider, I want to be a protector, I want to do all these things, but for me to do all these things, I gotta do this. I don't want to associate who I am with what I do, but so often it comes off that if I don't do this, I lose like a sense of self. I mean, and because that happens, it starts to impede on my relationship. So she feels it a lot, and then, you know, intimacy isn't where it needs to be and stuff like that. But it's not like I lose any love for my partner, love them the bits. But at the same time, it's like I start to feel like, what happens if I have $2 to my name again? You know?
Yeah.
It's like, what happens when I don't really have any way to turn because this thing ain't working and that thing ain't working? So I feel like I always gotta be on the go. Literally, like a day I tell you, I was up from 4:30 all the way to right now, and it's just like, it's just constant. You know what I mean? But that's the way of the man. But ironically, the way the superior man is to also give time and credence to.
That's why it's a superior man, because they managed to find a way to do both.
They find a way to do both.
Yeah.
It's hard, man. It's hard.
Yeah. And I think we need to give ourselves patience too, because we're still figuring it out as we go along.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you swell your head with all this philosophy, and you could attach something Epictetus say on Marcus Aurelius to everything that's going on in life.
Yeah.
You tend to feel like you got it all figured out, but you're always playing it by ear. You're always playing it by ear.
I see like people with these long-lasting relationships, they look up and be like, they got it figured out, and then they get in a long-lasting relationship, and they get this age, and it's like, you ain't got shit figured out.
Yeah. You don't see the cliff notes, the fine print, you know? And I am known for that. I am known for people saying, listen, I don't even believe in love, but Kyle and his relationship perfect. Like I am known for that, you know. And I just gotta remind people, no, we've got our times too.
Yeah.
We've got to figure it out, you know, that kind of stuff. So it happens.
You're into you're into technology and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, our sons are gonna be Gen Beta. Right? Somebody told me that.
Yeah.
Somebody told me that recently.
Gen Alpha, Gen Z. Yeah.
I never know how we got there yet.
Yeah.
But that's where our sons are gonna be, right?
Correct.
You think technology right now is making fatherhood or becoming a man or whatever easier or harder?
Bit of both. Technology is a double-edged sword. It has always been a double-edged sword. I can hear my grandmother now on the technophobe side, you know, peering into that light box all the time. That can be good for you. And she kind of right, to be honest, you know, and stay off the internet because there's this on the internet, there's that on the internet. There's, I don't know how we feel about the words again, just say prawn, you know, there's all of that going on. There's the AI, there's the male loneliness epidemic, the OnlyFans, pseudo relationship pipeline, all of that stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But there's also my extended family in Jersey.
Yeah.
Could get on a video call me and see my son. And he could have connection with people that 50 years ago, 70 years ago is a letter or you travel by boat, by plane, that kind of stuff, you know? There is the wealth of knowledge, the limitless information that is on the internet that he could be spending his time positively and constructively engaging in.
Right.
So definitely a double-edged sword. And I guess we as parents, we as fathers in particular, need to foster that type of relationship with the technology, with the internet, that kind of stuff. It is a tool that you can use, but you always put down your tools eventually.
So some experts say that in early stages of a child's development, screen time right now is definitely, it has a negative effect on like how they would, you know,
correct.
And stuff. So it's hard because there's so many things technologically sound around us or whatever that the children are going to be involved in. Like you can't really keep them away from it.
Yeah.
If it would be on, we would try to keep Zav, like he'd be crying, he'd be screaming or whatever, he'd be trying to feed and watch. Now the moment he catch sights of the TV, it's like trance.
Okay.
So it's like we don't want it to foster that. But everything is so, it's not, don't get me wrong, like TV is not like a staunch thing in the house. It's literally like it's literally like you see it at the end of the day or at the end of
it's some stimulation and you're not even necessarily focusing on the
but
TV.
We're constantly going. But the moment that TV's on and he's in the vicinity, it's like immediate. It's like there's no rhyme or reason. It's just focused on the screen, right? What role do you think you want technology to play? I know you talked about, you know, connecting with families and wealth and knowledge. What role do you think you want that to play in your child's upbringing? Because, like, as I just said, I don't think we can get away from it. You know, at some point, they're going to go into schools and like, there's going to be like computers all over it. Like,
and at the same time, I see myself potentially going on the path of becoming just like my grandmother, very almost like a close brethren about technology. You know, she knows how to work the VCR that not working anymore now because it's just too old, you know. But she's very, 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 very particular with what technology she engages in, and I don't want to have that same mentality, you know, necessarily because I know the blind spot she has. You know what I mean? But you have to be there and you have to be present and you have to lead by example again. If your child realizes that y'all don't spend too much time with the TV, is going to affect him. I heard somebody say you could talk all 21 years, assuming that your child leaves at 21. You could talk all 21 years, you know?
Yeah.
Impart knowledge and all that kind of stuff. But what you do, actions will always speak louder than words when it comes to certain things. And I think what you want to do is make sure that that doesn't get a hold on your child too early in life, you know? Because as they get older, they'll be able to handle more stimulation with less adverse effects, you know? And we are possibly the last generation that grew up and had a good set of our childhood without technology.
Yeah.
We understand that you can go outside. People talk about go outside and touch grass, but it's way more than that. It's going outside and touching grass, falling on it, flying kites, going to the beach,
just being
pebbles
outside
on a Sunday. I grew up with that. Fly the kite, until the sun gets a certain part in the sky and then go to the beach after, you know? So make sure your kids are doing those activities too, you know? Make sure that they have the diversity, the variety of activities, because that's how you fight addiction. You know, you can't just stop cold turkey and there's a big void to fill. You need to fill up your life with stuff. So fine. I on the Game Boy or whatever, but I can always go outside, ride the bicycle, you know, fly the kite, whatever the case may be, you know. So variety, monitor it, always give them. They need to know they have options. They need to know they have options. Yes, the TV is real flashy and this and that, but once they have options and you monitor it. And if you got to put your foot down hard some evenings, because I remember growing up, my mom used to tell me I got 30 minutes with the Game Boy on an evening, you know. And then as I got, the thing is, my mom had a really nice setup for me. When I was young, I remember from as far back as I can remember, like age 5, 4, that kind of stuff. My bedtime was 7 o'clock. Then it went to 7:30 once I got past about 6. Then when I get to about 8, it was 8 o'clock, that kind of thing. And it just moved. Because of that now, I have really good sleeping habits and I could wake up at will. So when Imani went into labor at 2:30 in the morning, you know, it was like, she said, Kyle, and I was like, let's go, you know? So I don't, when we got to go to the airport early in the morning or something like that, I just decide I waking up at 4:30 and that's what happened. Because I think I got to experience, you know, that shift, just 30 minutes less, 30 minutes less, you know? So I could feel out when I need to wake up, and I don't even use alarms, you know? And I wish I could pass that on to other people, because it's a very nice thing to get a really good night's rest and to also wake up when you feel like waking up. You know?
Speaking of passing on stuff to other people, and I can take the conversation in a different direction, but I hope I can link it back. So yesterday I was at the hair salon, and my partner, she had just gone inside to the supermarket, and I had to step out, but Zavi was screaming his head off. But we forgot the bag of diapers at the gym. I went to the gym to show off Zavi and what's not, but I had to get the hair appointment and whatever. And in doing that, it was like a little bit of a rush. Zavi fall asleep, everybody was saying, and all cute, put it in, go on the hairdresser and stuff. Just runs inside to go to the supermarket because we're in oysters in the complex. And my hairdresser is located inside one of the barber shops. And I was like, oh shit, I really got a bag. No, Zavi hate to be sitting on he put one watch on. So I had to get in the car, drive off. He's screaming the whole way through. Get the bag. Luckily, Josh came out, had it, but
right. Shout out to Josh, man. Josh run 57 on IG. My people.
Save my life. Drop the bag inside. Going back to the thing. Get baby out. Got walking in with the car seat. Bag strapped on my back. Put the car seat down. Take the bag off my back. Pull the little mat out. But Zavi in car seat. Bum, clean Zavi. Stop on pamper. Put the dirty bin thing in the bin. And all these things just happen instinctively, right? Correct. It's just what you need to do. Well, all that time, my hairdresser, she's just watching this thing unfold, right? Just comes in the moment the bag is popped, and I was getting ready to put Zavi inside the car seat, ball, and then you was snap his jumper, right? And I was like, I just finished. She was like, not changing him. I said, he done. Like, you just gotta snap the thing, put it inside. Put him inside the car seat, he ready to go. And I here for the rest of the day. My hairdresser looks at me and she's like, I thought you needed help. I was like, what? She was like, I just saw you come in and you put it on and you was just doing all this thing and you was moving so quick. I really wasn't sure what was going to happen. And I was like, I do this all the time.
Yeah. That's what a present father is. 9
times out of 10, if he needs to be changed, I'm the one changing him. Correct. If he needs a bath, I'm the one giving him a bath. And what she said in the moment kind of stuck me. Like, I don't see dads doing this a lot. I want to say 2 things. 1, there's a level of cognitive dissonance when it comes to what fathers need or what people want fathers to be in society, right? Whereas people raise these generational men where they're emotionally unregulated. They don't know how to, be present with the kids. And then expect that after these generations raise other kids, that the kids become what you want a child to be. Or women, for example, will raise a son thinking that this is the man that they want, and then that turns out to be the exact same man that you decide to not have in your life. There's a level of cognitive dissonance when it comes to that, because you can't expect something that you never taught. You can't expect something that you never had that experience being around, right? I see things on social media, you talk about these sort of relationships, you talk about all these things. I know women expect from men things that seem like
we have not been equipped to do. Yeah.
But then I also see things like the beer conversation, where people talking about whether they want to be in the woods with a beer or man. I saw clips of women diving with sharks and saying, I'd rather be with a shark than with a man. Labeling men in all these dehumanizing tones, whereas we are lesser than. But then you still expect a society of men regulated in emotion, financially stable, protector and provider, and the Western society starts seeping into the culture, being that we need to create these types of men. But here I am in the salon, changing Zabi's dad,
handling everything. Correct.
I know it started to change the cycle. It started to change the narrative based on what men or what man should do. And one more thing, like there was this conversation about whether a boy or whether a child should have like the man's last name at the end of pregnancy and what's not, or should they give the last name? And it's like, what else as men do we have to give to the son than your name? You talked about rites of passage, you talked about all these things, but like, unless there's a DNA test or whatever taken on site, you know what I mean? And obviously you can have your qualms and your arguments about it, but unless that's taken on site, there's no link to that child unless it's through
that feels visceral, right? Yeah. I mean, if they look like you, that's one thing, but you know, but I understand where you're coming from.
You ever feel like, well, obviously you grew up in a different, you grew up pretty much different than I did. Well, oftentimes I would feel like there's a disconnect between the dad or the fathers that I saw and the man that I want to be, or the father that I want to be now. You think there's a disconnect in society when you see stuff like that? Definitely. Let's come back to the ring. This might feel like a kind of like a silly. You said you were going to talk about it.
Growing up, I did not see a lot of men wear their wedding rings, and I always wondered why are you not pro? What's the reason? You know, what's the reason that the women wear their rings and they show it off and I got married, this and that, turning forth. Why aren't men wearing their rings? It might be just my experience, so it could be representational bias. It's just who I happen to be.
Did the dads and the fathers in your life wear their rings?
I actually don't even remember if my father wears his ring or not. I actually don't remember, so I don't even want to say yeah or nay. But suffice to say, growing up, I didn't really see it a lot, and I was like, I definitely want to be different where that's concerned. But to go more in the emotional unavailability, I think that is a common thing. I don't think that's something that people, oh, really? Like, no, that is something we know, especially with our parents' generation and stuff like that, you know? And the thing is, once you begin to get a understanding of what was going on in their generation, you start to develop empathy, you start to realize, because every generation, there are certain commonalities in people of every generation in terms of what was happening at the time and that kind of stuff. And it creates a certain psychographic reality for each generation, you know? And you hear about the silent generation, the baby boomers, that kind of stuff. So I think that in our parents' generation, that was just the way. And they solve a lot of problems with alcoholism and that kind of stuff too. And it was just get it done and make the sacrifice. Maybe beat your wife here, maybe drink there. And
so the same doctor Anna mentioned, she said, what happens when a father starts to bond to his child and bond more often is that he starts to lose testosterone. Not in a sense where you lose your strength or you lose a certain prowess, but you start to become more empathetic. Right. You start to become more nurturing from a stance that we want to protect, we want to provide. And by being very hands-on with the baby, being very involved in the baby's life, you start to lower your guard, so to speak, when it comes to being so strong and so stoic, right?
Right.
Because now the focus shifts from, all the other things that we do in life to being there, being maybe monogamous to this family, being the head of the household, providing and protecting this child, providing and protecting the woman that brought each other into life. And in a sense, you start to become more nurturing, you start to become more caring, you start to become more empathetic. And I think that's what happens when, you get close to each other. The adverse effect can happen if you go away from each other for a long period of time. Your testosterone builds back up and you no longer want to be a child. You no longer want to be around each other because you're away from each other for so long. But fostering that element of play and rough and tumble and being around each other and, touching and feeling and hugging and being, a sense of security for the child, it makes you closer and it makes you more of a nurturer, so to speak.
Yeah.
What we link that to the woman having that biological aspect, it does something differently in a man. With oxytocin levels and everything, correct. It starts like this chain of reaction. When you're close to the baby and spending time with the baby. So just bringing it to a close. I feel like it was a good conversation too. But that being said about the nurturing and stuff, what values you think you want to instill in Michael? What do you think are non-negotiable, so to speak, to teach now?
Empathy, funnily, as you just said, the word, and discernment. I think the most valuable mental skill you can have in life is discernment, because we like to create systems for ourselves. We like to have rules, and there's always the exception. There's always the edge case. And you need to know, life is a dance between the objective reality and the subjective reality. The objective reality is 80% of this thing is this thing. And the subjective reality is when you don't fit that particular thing.
Yeah.
You might be the average in many places in life. But then, because you deadlift 4 or 5, squat 4 or 5, you are now in the 1%. You're in the extreme.
Right.
And you don't experience averageness. You don't experience the typical, the objective. You experience the subjective, because that's the extreme. That's the difference,
Yeah.
So being able to discern allows you to realize when you are in the objective or when you are in the subjective. This is the edge case. This is where I have to play by ear. Yeah. This is where I have to do trial and error. This is where I can't rely on established principles, because I am not the statistic here, So to me, that's where discernment is valuable. You need to assess the risks of the decisions you make.
You spoke earlier about being anxious and having all these feelings and stuff. For me, when the sense of anxiety and stuff took me, and when the sense of overwhelm hit me in those isolated moments in my life, I felt like I had nobody to turn to, right? I definitely couldn't go and talk to my dad. I don't know if you have that relation with your dad, that you actually have those conversations, but I definitely couldn't.
Not about that kind of stuff. There's things I talked to my father about, but I wouldn't.
But with things like that, or any other thing where your son might feel less safe or less guarded, so to speak, you think those are things that you would want to do with him, or have conversation with him, that you typically couldn't have with your dad?
Yeah. So again, my mother's who talked out the whole world to me. Yeah. She laid it out for me,
Yeah.
And I would like to be that for my son. What my mother was for me in terms of saying, explaining everything about life to me, I would like to be that for my son. But what I want to do though, I don't want to explain the whole world to him before he experiences it. I want to be right there. I want him to reach out and say, this happened. I'd be like, all right, here is how to think about life. Here's how to think about things.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to rob him of the experience. Because when I get to see what he does, I might not even need to do this.
Yeah.
Because look at what he's naturally doing.
Yeah.
And that way we'll know who he is before I decide to start or turning you this way and
Because
turning you that way.
ideally, I want him to model after the things I do, so that I don't have to see it, like, don't do that or don't do this.
Correct.
But should you feel like you fall, or should you feel like there's something that seems like too intimate or too emotional to share, that you can't share with your dad and not necessarily just run to mom and talk about it, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's a sense of, as we spoke about, empathy and nurture and stuff, there's an element in that we have that we could cultivate a lot differently than the woman could.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. For sure.
And you talk about your circle of dads or your circle of male figures and stuff. Are these people, not necessarily about emotions, but are these people that you could talk to openly about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I got to the very deepest aspects of myself with them because I wanted to figure it out. I wanted to understand, like, was the right thing to do? How it was the right way to behave? Was the right way to feel? Was the right way to think about this thing? And when I play out this logic, when I play out this methodology, this mindset that I have, is it ironclad?
Yeah.
And nothing is 100%, but if it gonna fail in that 0.1%, can I know how to be aware of that? So that I can, again, the subjective and the objective, how do I know when I am in the exception and not the rule? A lot of life is about that.
Before we started talking, like, one of the reasons that I brought you on was because you're a recent father, just like I am. Sons are a couple of months apart, but it's one of the closer relationships I had with a new dad, right? And I think what I found is like a lack of community for fathers just like that, right? I see a lot happening in women. We spoke about it, how mothers would get together, they would go off, mothers would get together and do like yoga classes and whatnot, prenatal classes and stuff like that.
Male spaces.
But there's very few male spaces there. Do you think men find it hard, especially males, find it hard to join communities, like when it comes, or it circles around fatherhood?
I would say probably more than likely. Yeah. Men don't know what to do in the world now. There's so much has changed over the past 100 years, like if I was living for that long. But, we know had a lot of different sociological shifts in the world, psychological shifts in the world, and men are like, where do we stand like today? Yeah. We hearing that this got change and that got change and that, women doing this now and you don't have to do this no more and you need to know this and you need to understand that and And it's like, I know what I feel like I need to do. And when I watch movies and when I look at true history and stuff like that, it feels like it aligns with that. Men's supposed to protect, men's supposed to provide, we're supposed to be in control, we're supposed to be the mountain that the waves crash against, and we're supposed to be strong throughout the face of all of these different things. Consistent, strong, a good presence, that kind of stuff. And nowadays, with all the yelling and the rage bait and the bots and IG comments and stuff like that, I could understand how people coming up, the younger generations coming up is, okay, what's a man? What is a man now? We're supposed
to all that being said, in this generation, no, then, because you've obviously had experience with it, but with all the psychological, physiological, all the changes that you mentioned that happened in life in recent years, what would a support system for new fathers look like in this society or in this community?
I think we need to have some sort of semi-regular, within your circles and stuff, each man within his circles, some sort of semi-regular gatherings that aren't, again, it ain't really surrounding the alcohol, not even food, like just we're going somewhere and chill for a little bit and begin to talk about becoming a man, how we are doing if we have a purpose, if we're trying to find our purpose, that kind of stuff. We need to start having the man conversations that maybe our fathers didn't have with us, that kind of stuff. Growing up, I never had it taught, not from either parent. And I have empathy for that. Them certain talks about growing up and stuff, it could be awkward, etc., but it has its costs. It has its costs. And we need to start doing that as men. We need to start talking about certain things. you know, instead of just, yeah, you good though. You good otherwise, you know? And again, you will look like we have this conversation with our eyes only and not actually like sit down and talk about the harm, the heartbreak, the loss of the job, I got her pregnant and I don't know what to do.
Very human, we still are human.
Real conversation, because we don't need each other to be inhumane.
Yeah.
The world already does not even try to understand us.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, listen, what's wrong with you is that you don't emote like a woman. The loudest voices we are hearing in terms of how to fix men is that, and then is have 13 Lamborghinis and have 13 Lamborghinis and have a roster of men line up forevermore.
There's no way to
there's no reasonable middle way, the superior man kind of thing, you know, or even the Bible. And you don't need to be religious. At the end of the day, say what you like. It is a book of wisdom, and it literally has history in it that the atheists of the people in those countries will not challenge. It is a history book too.
Yeah.
So you gotta let go of that. I'm not telling you got to subscribe to a religion, you know, but it is a wisdom book. There are things in there that can help you.
If you had to encapsulate all that we said into like one nugget, it don't need to be a word, it could be a phrase, it could be a sentence. But as I leave this space or this lifetime or whatever, and this legacy, I hope to leave one for Zabi. As I leave this, right, I always think about things I will probably say to him. I always think about things that I would want him to grow up and like understand. I want that for whatever reason, and he grows up and he finds technology and he finds that daddy actually had a podcast, or he tried this and that something,
or he's really attractive and women always showing up. He could deal with that.
He could sit down and he could go through and find some sort of nugget.
Correct.
In the things that I've said or the people that I've spoken to, and be like, you know what, like, daddy modeled it, daddy showed it, daddy spoke to men that modeled it and showed it too, and this is how it should be as a man. Even if he wasn't really able to like tell me or articulate as best as he could, this is it. If you had to put something in a nugget for Micah, you know, just to close off, if you had to speak to Micah right now, he's only 10 months, but he's gonna be a year, then he's gonna be 5, then 10, then 18, and then 30. It's crazy how we just birth humans and now we in charge of their life forever. So now it's like, if you can say this words of wisdom to him that you maybe didn't get as a lad or when you're growing up from your dad or any father figure for that being, I always say,
Micah, do not be afraid to truly get to know yourself. And it might not be something you can do around even the people that you are closest to. You get to know yourself when you've been alone for a certain amount of time, and the need to keep up moral, psychological appearances of people begins to fade because they're literally not around. And you find yourself doing certain things. Don't ignore it. That's you. And then go from there. That's what I would say.
That's good. That's good. And just take Micah out and put Zabi to the
sure. Absolutely. I plan to be a very present uncle.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to instill these communities and brothers and stuff that we talk about, because I definitely want that. I didn't have it, but every person I've come into contact in my life has been, especially since Zabi came, has been very pertinent and very like, the words escape me right now, but I love the fact that I made friendships and connections with the type of people that I have now, because everybody seems to be exactly who I need in this space right now. You know what I mean?
You're blessed.
Definitely.
You're blessed.
And Zabi, blessed.
Correct.
Micah, I just want I did grow up and, you know, did understand and learn these things, because it's been a hard experience for me in my 30s.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be that way for him, you know?
Correct.
And I definitely want that more so. Community, brotherhood, fatherhood, fathers coming together, just making better men in society. Yeah.
Yeah. The end of generational curses,
The end
of
of
generational
generational
traumas,
curses,
that kind of stuff.
definitely.
Yeah.
That was the end of the yes.
Great.
That was a long conversation, but I think it was needed, and I'm glad that we were able to sit down and chop it up, especially around like something so critical and pertinent in society today. And like, thanks, man.
Manners and respect.
Yeah. I would say it to tell people where to find you, but you don't be on social media like that.
If you really want to find me, have you met KD?
Yeah.
Here's KD. Have you met KD?
Yeah.
On Instagram. I will talk to you. So if you want to DM, go ahead.
Or just send
but I am not attempting to be some sort of public figure, or anything where that's concerned. I'm here for the conversation.
Yeah.
That's me.
Love it. Well, that's the end of this space. Yeah.